hate the texture of your hair? Who taught you to hate the color of your skin to such extent that you bleach to get like the white man? Who taught you to hate the shape of your nose and the shape of your lips? Who taught you to hate yourself from the top of your head to the soles of your feet? Who taught you to hate your own kind? Who taught you to hate the race that you belong to? Don't let anybody make you think that God chose America as his divine messianic force to be a sort of policeman of the whole world. God has a way of standing before the nations with judgment, and it seems that I can hear God saying to America, you are too arrogant. If you don't change your ways, I will rise up and break the backbone of your power, and I'll place it in the hands of a nation that doesn't even know my name. Be still and know that I'm God.
Welcome again to Street Talk. My name is Ahmad Shakaraki, and on Street Talk we deal with political, social, and economics here in Michigan, the U.S., and abroad. Now, joining me tonight,
Dennis Burnside,
Charles Thomas,
Paget Maynard.
All right, man, we got a lot to cover, but we're going to talk a little bit about a man who I disagreed with a lot, but at the same time, he ended up being a four-star general, and I know Chuck knows how hard that is for a black man to be in the military
and
respected and all of that,
and achieve that level.
Yeah. So, what are your thoughts on it?
Well, I agree with you in the main. He was a outstanding human being. He's a great man. What he must have endured on his ascension to becoming a four-star general might break many of us.
Yeah.
So I respect that. I think the one thing that for me mars his memory is his testimony in front of the UN about the weapons of mass destruction and the so-called anthrax vials rather, where he held up a vial of probably flour and said this much could destroy a city, and they had cartoons of these railroad cars full of anthrax or weapon-grade uranium, depending on which myth you want to believe, when he knew that wasn't true. He said in hindsight, I regret making those statements because I pushed back against them in real time and didn't want to give that testimony, but he felt compelled to. A man's integrity should not be malleable. It should not be something that you can purchase or manipulate. And so for that reason, 700,000 to 1 million Iraqis dead, thousands of Americans dead, thousands more traumatic brain injuries and wounds that in earlier wars would have resulted in their deaths. Their lives are forever compromised, if not prematurely attenuated. All those things came because someone with the bearing, stature, and respect of Colin Powell went in front of the world and endorsed what he knew to be a lie.
Yeah.
And then for that, it's a serious mark against his legacy for me. So saying that to conclude, I respect the man, but I really resent what he did with the Iraq War.
So do I, Chuck.
Yeah. Well, I agree, and I didn't know that much about the man, but I was proud of what he had accomplished in his career, and his ideologies were, was somewhere along that line. I respected him as a black man that had accomplished those.
And then the thing is that he served 4 different presidents. So he wasn't just a yes man or whatever.
Joint Chief of Staff.
Right.
Yeah.
He was all of these things. You were saying, Patrick?
Well, I heard some folks this morning talking about him, but a lot of positive. You know?
Well, you know,
One of the good things I could say come out of this, here is a black man, come from
Jamaica.
well, the Jamaican parentage. I don't know if he was born here.
No,
or there.
born in Jamaica.
Okay, but he got here as a youngster.
Mm-hmm.
And he came up the ladder. He moved up the ladder,
Mhm.
which is not easy for a black man in this
Oh
country.
no.
So that was one good positive thing. And from that we could see and tell ourselves, hey, you can make it. He did it, I can do it too. I remember when my big brother, he said to me one time through a letter, what man has done, man can do. And I believe it. And I think if we get our youngsters to get that in their head, that hey, others did it, it doesn't preclude me. I can if I make the effort.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, Dennis, I agree with you in that that speech before the UN really put a dent
Mm-hmm.
in his legacy. The man was an upstanding man. I've heard somebody say he was, in spite of being up here, he was humble.
Mm-hmm.
He would stop on the road and help you fix your car. He was a man not just by the book, but he was practical.
Mm-hmm.
And these are some of the things that really had other people looking up to him. Maybe the country can forgive him for that mistake he made, but it's not going to bring back all those people who died as a result.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you know, the thing is that, you know, when we look at people like that, we always search, we kind of search through and see what they did, what they didn't do, and all these other things. But to me, of all the other things, I believe that this thing we were talking about when he was addressed the world, really, you know, about Amtrak and all these Amtrak and all these other things, and about the war. That's one thing that a lot of people will be talking about.
Yeah.
When they talk about Colin Powell.
Well, millions of people died as a result
Mm-hmm.
of that prevarication, and you can't live that down.
Mm-hmm.
I think I take him at his word that he said he regretted it,
Mm-hmm.
and that if he had to do it over again, he would not do it again, and he
Mhm.
apologized. And that's enough for me.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
But it still doesn't remove the stain,
Right.
Mm-hmm.
because people I admire stood on their word, and their word was manifest in their actions.
Right.
Mhm.
Malcolm X.
Yeah.
Malcolm X is called a choir boy and a saint by the FBI.
Mm-hmm.
They followed him around. They tried to let him implicate himself in
Mhm.
immorality
Yep.
or illegalities,
Mhm.
etc. They couldn't find anything. They couldn't
Right.
find a woman on the side. They couldn't find a little vial of alcohol. They couldn't find a little stash of drugs.
Mhm.
They couldn't find him being duplicitous whatsoever. That man
was
stood
clean.
on his word, and that's the kind of integrity I think any leader must have.
Yes.
Colin Powell, you know, he had it most of the time, but
Mhm.
if you don't have it all of the time, do you really have the type of integrity that a leader should have?
Right.
And I understand the pressure. You know, there's a lot of pressure from the military-industrial complex to have this war.
Mm-hmm.
So they manipulated the gullible American public, who for the most part is not learned. They don't read, don't want to
Right,
read.
right.
They resent you telling them to pick up a book or
Mhm.
magazine,
Yeah.
because that's all the liberal
Mhm.
scientific
Yeah, yeah.
community
Mhm.
telling me facts. I don't want to know facts.
Right.
Tell me what Sean Hannity's
Mhm.
saying, what
Mhm.
Stucker saying.
Yeah.
That's where they're coming from.
Mhm.
So for a man like Colin Powell to feed them these lies, this bowl of lies that they were hungry for,
Mhm. Yeah.
is
Yeah.
really despicable, because without his credibility, without his imprimatur on that effort, it would have been difficult for the United States to go to war in Iraq and say with a straight face, we're doing this because they're a threat.
Mhm.
You know, the idea that they were involved in 9/11 had already been pushed to the side by anybody who had a 8th grade reading level. But this new threat, the yellow cake that Judith Miller wrote about in the New York Times, which resulted in her firing because she knew that was a lie. You had this war fever.
Yeah.
People wanted to go to war.
Yeah.
9/11 happened. What are we going to do? Let's kill somebody.
Yeah.
Let's go to war.
Yeah.
And here comes Colin Powell, and they teed it up, and he hit the ball.
You know what went down there with that? Bush said, when asked, he said no, he did not ask Powell for any kind of input on it because I already know he was against it. So he didn't go to his man because the man would say no. But then, with this whole war was a personal thing, as I understand it, with Bush, because he said Saddam threatened his father.
It was more.
Was that reason enough to take?
It was much more than that. That's
as far as it would
that's
go.
the false mustache and goatee you put on somebody as a disguise. The real reason was the military-industrial complex was looking to make trillions of dollars, and they did.
Yeah.
They made trillions of dollars off that war. Just like in Vietnam, where Bell helicopter went from damn near being broke to being a multi-billion-dollar company. You saw the same thing with Halliburton. Halliburton right on the edge of bankruptcy. It didn't have a pot to pee in, and they put Dick Cheney on the board, and the next thing you know, they're getting pulled into a war effort, and they're making billions of dollars a month. That's what it was about. That and making the red meat eating goose step in public who wanted revenge on Iraq. I'm sorry, on 9/11. Use Iraq as a deliberate target. George Bush's personal animus about what they did to his daddy, that was nothing.
And that's America's MO. And then too, you can even say that they sabotaged the trade centers, because buildings don't fall like that.
No.
We could do a whole show on that.
Right.
No,
yeah.
they definitely.
The math doesn't work. The physics don't work.
Yeah.
Nothing about that is true.
Right.
Nothing about that is true.
And wasn't no Jewish people working that day.
Well, there was a document that was found that said that certain people were warned from the financial sector not to go into that building, and they didn't show up. You had put options against American Airlines and United Airlines, which is a way that you bet that the stock is going to fall.
Right. Inside.
So you had all this money rushing into there. You had Building 7, which was never hit by a plane.
No.
Never had anything to do with the so-called terrorist attack.
But it fell.
And it fell in its own footprint of free fall speed the same day, but in the evening. But it did house all of the files for the SEC. It did have all of the New York City video and espionage files and cabinets in there. They had, CIA had an office there, the FBI had an office there, Giuliani had his own private details there and data there, including his own office there. So there's a lot in Building 7 that in hindsight, we would say, I could see why they'd want to get rid of that. But we know no plane hit it. No building in history has ever failed its footprint at free fall speed, no matter what the cause. And you had 3 in the same day.
Hey, Dennis, could we say then that it was the impact from the other 2 that were hit that caused this to free fall?
Well, the most plausible story I've heard is that Building 7 saw its 2 big brothers fall, got so traumatic, got so traumatized that it looked fainted and fell. That makes about as much sense as anything else.
And people believe that.
Yeah, that was a lady. I don't know what station she was from. Anyway, she was talking.
Oh, that was I know what you're about to say. She was from the British network. What do they call it? She was standing in front of the camera about 11 in the morning, saying that Building 7 fell, and Building 7 is visible over his shoulders, and she said it collapsed in and it's down, and there's rubble there, and they're looking at baby, it's right behind you.
Yeah.
And that was like 11 in the morning.
Yeah.
She worked for British
Maybe she was
BBC.
yeah.
She worked for BBC.
Yeah.
She worked for BBC. And then later that evening at 5 o'clock, it fell.
fell.
And as it fell, by the way, firemen had open mics where they were talking to each other. And they said, get out of here. They're counting it down. And you get somebody going 5, 4, 3, 2,
Yeah, right,
and
yeah.
they collapse. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
You can hear these guys say, man, clear out of there, run.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we're not. But going back to Colin Powell, I think Colin Powell had as much, if not more, information than what we're talking about here about 9/11 and about Iraq and their so-called complicity with Osama bin Laden and all these crazy stories they told to dupe the public. He knew better.
Right,
he
right.
knew better.
Well, was it a situation where they was testing him to see his loyalty to this dark side?
Well, look here, man. You know, I remember back when Obama was president, a lot of people, and I was a critic. I remember you and I have conversations a few months after he was, I said, man, the brother's going the wrong way.
Mm-hmm.
He's running too far to the right. We need him going this way. But anyway, to your point, there were a lot of people who seemed to be reticent, seemed to be intimidated, seemed to be reluctant to say what was on their mind.
Mm-hmm.
And I always tell people that if you want to know why certain politicians in certain circumstances seem to bite their tongues and don't speak what you know they know to be the truth, all you got to do is go back to November 22nd, 1963. And that's the day John F. Kennedy got his brains blown out. And it was no angry lone nut. We've got an official, for people watching at home and they're getting angry and they think I'm just picking on the U.S. government. Everybody knows Lee Harvey Oswald did. No, Lee Harvey Oswald did not do it. In your own government, the United States government concluded, the House Select Committee on Assassinations concluded that JFK, RFK, and Martin Luther King all died as a result of conspiracy. And the only reason they didn't dig deeper and go into the who's and whys is because the meetings got, the investigation got corrupted and attenuated by right-wingers who didn't want any more brought out. But let's stop the myth that there's this single lone nut that the Warren Commission talked about as official story. No, it's not. The House Select Committee on Assassination said those men died as a result of a criminal conspiracy.
Well, when you look at how things went down there, it's hard for you to not see something was up. Jack Ruby, for one. Why is it that you have this man just assassinated the president and you're walking him up this place when you could have put him in the car back?
Right. And a nobody.
Well, nobody who had deep ties to organized crime, a nobody who was under FBI surveillance and handling for years, a nobody who was a pimp, a nobody who called Chief Justice Earl Warren and said, I need to talk to you because I got some beans to spill. And before he could meet with Warren, all of a sudden he had an acute case of cancer that came up on him and roared and killed him. So yeah, man, the explanations that are given in a lot of these cases are so ludicrous that a child with a 6th grade education could see right through it. But for the fact there's so many of us are propagandizing to believe in red, white, and blue. Yes, we're moral. Yes, we're the good guys. Yes, we wear the white hat. We would never do anything like that. So people can't conceive of the fact that Martin Luther King was almost certainly assassinated by an assassin with military training. It's almost certain. You had witnesses who saw it.
Sharpshooter.
And there's a lot James Earl Ray. James Earl Ray, here this man is, he's an escaped, not escaped convict, illiterate, never been anything more than a petty criminal, breaking into to vending machines and stores and gas, this kind of guy.
Set up.
And all of a sudden he's going to pull off the crime of the century, and after shooting King, goes to Alabama, back to Memphis, goes to Toronto, flies from Toronto, flies to Brussels, flies to London, Heathrow Airport, and is on his way to South Africa. I take that back, he's on his way to Rhodesia with $6,000 in his pocket and 2 passports of Canadian men who look just like him.
Mm-hmm.
Now this illiterate fool did all that
Right.
Yeah.
by himself.
Yeah.
Without
But
no
I'm
help.
supposed to believe, that's plausible.
Yeah.
Stop it.
Yeah.
Stop it, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just stop it.
And there's a lot of J. Gordon Liddy's working for the federal government.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course.
To me, back to Colin Powell, I just, I really thought, and just saying for me, I never did think that he would make that speech until he made it, because I thought he would resign. I thought he resigned.
I do too.
Yeah.
I
It was
certainly
a
do
test.
too.
Yeah.
It was a test.
For
For loyalty.
Yeah. I said no. He won't do
But
that.
maybe Colin Powell remembered 11/22/63.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
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 He
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Might have.
And same
I
thing with
would.
Obama. Yeah. Obama had, 2 young children.
Yeah.
That had bright futures.
Right.
He had a wife he loved.
He had to protect them.
Yeah, he had a happy life. He's like, I don't want to give
Right.
all that up.
Right.
I can
Right.
bite my
Yeah.
tongue on a
Right.
few
Yeah.
things. And I
Yeah.
think Colin Powell may have
Yeah.
been in
I
that
can
same
I can
position.
endorse gays and all that. Yeah.
Yeah, well, he may have very well felt that. I feel that that gay people need full rights.
Yeah.
But that, setting that aside, I just think that sometimes you can't explain someone's actions other than to say they must not have had full free hands to do what they really felt. And I felt that way about Colin Powell. I felt like he got pushed into
Played.
that speech. Yeah.
Patrick, you were saying. But the other thing is, when we look at the Biden's agenda and everything, I see a lot of places he's spinning his wheels, really. His wheels are spinning. What do you see? What do you see? Because he spent all his time trying to get, what he said, I can work with him. But when he became president, he can't get. In fact, he can't get two supposed to be Democrats to work with him. The guy from West Virginia, and the lady from.
There's a lot of skullduggery going on up there.
It's
man.
corruption. Man. It ain't hard to figure out.
Right.
Joe Manchin made $500,000 last year.
Millionaire.
Yeah, he made $500 off one transaction. He's got this instrument set up that's heavily invested in the oil and coal business in West Virginia, and it's a family Manchin type of trust. And his piece of that last year alone was $500,000. Now he's in a state that is coal dependent, even though coal use worldwide is diminishing. It's certainly diminishing in the United States. It's naturally going to go into go back to what it was in the first place, dinosaurs. But Manchin is representing people who are not the people of West Virginia. He's representing the big corporate interests, and they're paying him handsomely to represent them. They don't want to see these power sources have to be derived from clean electric sources. Wind and
air,
They don't want that because that cuts away their income, and they've got Manchin in their pocket. Same thing with Sinema.
Yeah.
Sinema originally ran as a Green Party candidate. I mean, that's as far as left that you want now. Now she says she has trouble negotiating Medicaid prices. We're the only country, I think we talked about this last week, we're the only country in the world that says pharmaceutical companies, whatever your list price is, whatever you decide your highest price is, we'll pay that. We don't even want to negotiate. You just tell us what you want to charge us and we'll pay that. That was never done until the George W. Bush administration. And we're the only country in the world so foolish. Everyone else uses their leverage through buying power to say, look, man, I've got 100 million people. I've got 150 million people. I've got 500 million people. If you want to sell us your pill, you're going to give us pricing predicated on our leverage and our buying power. We're not going to pay you top shelf. But no, the United States does, because our politicians are in the pockets of big pharma who pay them off. So Joe Manchin is nothing more than a corrupt politician.
Yeah.
Christian Sinema is no more than a
Yeah.
corrupt politician. It's really not hard to understand. But I will say that I don't necessarily agree with you that the Biden administration is spinning their wheels. I think the Biden administration is playing chess. And they've been putting pressure on Sinema and Manchin in ways that are very uncomfortable for them. And you've seen Manchin move his goal line further and further to Biden's position in terms of what he's willing to vote for, as opposed to where he was from the start. Sinema, nobody knows what she's thinking because she's just batty.
Okay.
But I'm thinking what you're seeing is you're starting to see articles in the New York Times, Washington Post, about their financial duplicity, about their hypocrisy, and that kind of pressure doesn't come without somebody from the top saying, "Yeah, go ahead and talk about it."
We got December the 3rd, when this little extension will be over.
You mean for the deficit?
Yeah.
The debt ceiling?
Yeah.
That's artificial anyway. That's
Well,
you don't run for office saying I'm going to address the debt ceiling.
Well, they just started 30 years ago, because 30 some years ago it wasn't even.
It was a way to try. It's a political mechanism in the first place. So that's irrelevant, because when there's a Republican president, there's never controversy about the debt ceiling.
No.
Yeah,
We know that Trump raised the debt ceiling higher than it's ever been
Right.
before, just like George W. Bush did, just like Reagan did, just like the first Bush did. They spend, they cut taxes, they continue spending or more. I mean, look at George W. Bush. He's the first president in U.S. history to cut taxes at the time of a war.
Yeah.
War, you spend way more
Yeah.
money. He goes in through the spending spree. At the same time, he cuts taxes on the wealthy and corporations, blows a hole in the deficit.
Yeah.
Obama gets in office. Oh, the deficit.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
the deficit.
Yeah.
It's a game, man. So don't even worry about the deficit
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah, but it's all based on money
Oh yeah, well yeah.
and wealth.
Well yeah.
And that's why Trump pulled out of that environmental thing.
Yeah.
And then as soon as he got in office, he let that pipeline go through the Indian nation.
Well,
Well, he tried to.
he tried to,
Yeah, he tried
because
to.
right now, in fact, there was 500,000 or something like that
The elite.
Indian down in Washington for the first time since 1972. They were saying that's the biggest
Rally there.
rally they had had since 1972, and but a lot of things look like they're jailing, but I don't know. So you were saying the December 3
No, that's not
thing
the issue. No,
is going to be it won't be an issue.
They played McConnell
Okay.
rather than the other way around. They said, "All right, play it. Let it go." And no, let's be hasty. Let's move it back a couple more. That's McConnell's.
Yeah, okay.
So, but the real issue, man, is what's going to be done with the infrastructure bill, the hard infrastructure bill, versus the Build Back Better. What the Build Back Better does for preschool, for free junior college, for elder care, all these different social programs that the progressive wing of the Democratic Party are demanding. And then you have the hard infrastructure, which Sinema and Manchin say you'll go along with, because everybody knows we need to do something to road, bridges, and highways. That's where the fight is. And it hasn't been won yet, but doesn't mean it's going to be. So you can call it wheel spinning, or you can call it politics as usual. But they're moving towards an agenda, and they're almost certainly going to get a win out of it.
Who taught you to hate the texture of your hair? Who taught you to hate the color of your skin to such extent that you bleach to get like the white man? Who taught you to hate the shape of your nose and the shape of your lips? Who taught you to hate yourself from the top of your head to the soles of your feet? Who taught you to hate your own kind? Who taught you to hate the race that you belong to? Don't let anybody make you think that God chose America as his divine messianic force to be a sort of policeman of the whole world. God has a way of standing before the nations with judgment, and it seems that I can hear God saying to America, "You are too arrogant. If you don't change your ways, I will rise up and break the backbone of your power. And I'll place it in the hands of a nation that doesn't even know my name. Be still and know that I'm God.